Okay, so rescribing, re-riveting, basically putting detail back onto your model. So if we have a quick look here, we have our Spitfire, and a classic example of this is obviously putting in details you may have lost through cleanup and sanding and seam lines and things like that, and they can actually just be wiped off completely and you're just left back with plastic. So you want to put those details back, otherwise it looks a little bit odd, especially if you're looking at the tops and things. You look down at it and you're thinking, yep, that's all very nice, the riveting comes up with a panel line and then stops. And then consequently then it carries on just past it, and then obviously it looks a bit bad. So what you want to do is pop that detail back in. So we've spoken about before on panel lines and things like this about how to pop those in. It's very, very straightforward on curved surfaces, and that is by taking a blade, and you could use a knife, although we've got a scribing one here, but you can just come along, you can put the actual blade of it into the groove, and you can literally just roll it right the way over, and you can use it like a cutting motion as well. So you sort of come in, you pop the blade down in the hole, and you literally just come along and push over. Couple of swipes like it and you're good to go. So that's pretty straightforward to putting them in. But what do you do when you've got riveting detail for the same thing? And again, down in here in front of me you can see we've got a selection of riveting tools. So I tend to use something like a 1mm for this one, because obviously we're on to 1/32. So then what we can do is, if you can see on here, we've got some of them in already. We've got the riveting detail running on the top here. So we just literally place it down where we can see the rivets, pop along, oh, I got the wrong one, pop along then with the riveting wheel and literally just push them all back in. And you can then go along and re-add them all in. So we've got some to do underneath here. So you can see we've got some pins there. So we just come along and we join up. So again, it's quite straightforward of popping all of these ones in. So down in here, we've lost them all. So we're just going to come along and we put them right in. And then again, just down in here, same thing. And we just join them up, so forth and so on. And we can put all of that riveting detail back in where it's been removed. The other way, of course, you can do it is individually. So you can take something like this. So down in here, we've got a little pin. And we can come along and literally we can push each one in. So there may be a little area where you can still see them. So that's quite handy. If not, you can just come along. We can put all of these in, like down in here. We need to pop this panel line back in. So again, it's quite difficult to actually get on target with this one because it's very narrow. But we can just roll that in over the top and we can pop that back in there just like. So with those in there and putting them in. But what I thought we would do was have a look down on here onto a bit of paper so you can see exactly what's going on a little bit more accurately. So down in here to start with, this is for my riveting. So down in here we've got some templates. So this is great for putting in all of these details down in here. This is the Hasegawa tri-tool set that I've got and have for many years. And again, this is pretty much my staple for what I use all the time. Scribing wise, as I say, you can see these over here. These are my favorite ones, go-to ones, but there is other ones out there. We've got the Tamiya one down in here, where I have a go with at the moment. We can show you that, very expensive piece of kit. And obviously we've got the standard P cutters, and we've just got a normal, as we used just then, a pin down in here. So that's pretty good just to have it down in like that. So here we are on the black paper, so you can see exactly what we're doing. So if I just take our standard way of doing this, so if you like, you can place your one down on here, you take your scribing tool. Now a lot of this is to do with the angle you're physically cutting at or sanding at. So to start with, we're just going to put the blade down in here, and what we're going to do is be quite a shallow. So when we say shallow, the angle is going to be very much down. This will be a high angle down, but you can probably see the angle of the blade is about there if you were doing it. So it's around about sort of 45 degrees, but to increase the dig angle of that, and the blade comes up as you can see it there, we'll make it a little bit more. So that's going to dig a little bit more heavier. The lighter will be up here. So to start with, we're going to start with quite a light. So this is going to be very much a low pass, okay? And then we're just going to come along and we come in there like that, and as you can see it's down in there, we've got the swath coming off of it, and that's a standard type line just down in there like that. But if we make this a higher angle again, so it's a little bit farther up, so this is a little bit more like up here, 45 degrees. Instead of being a low angle, this is a high angle. So again, we're going to pop this in here, we're just going to run this along. You will see we hardly make any line at all. and it hasn't really dug that deeper line. It's a very, very thin line, and that's because on here you can see the angle of that blade. What we've done is this top line as well, this one was quite a low pass, so it's made the angle a lot more. So it's like basically a 45-degree cut into this one. This bottom one is a lot finer because we're a lot higher, so we weren't digging down as far. So think of it, obviously this top one here, this one going in there was like this, so that blade is digging right down into it. This bottom one we just did there was a lot flatter because we're a higher angle on this. So this will affect how your panel lines go. So if we do a low one, so this next pass is going to be very much keeping it as low down as possible. So if we just pop this down in here, and we're going to go for a nice low pass, and again just like that, and then we take off, as you can see, because that's a proper low pass, it's digging very, very deeply. So again, switching this out, we're just going to come up here, and this time we're going to be very much at a high angle up here, so it's less pressure going down. So we're up here, and we're just going to run this down and along. And as you can see, a very, very thin line. So again, don't think that all scribers are doing the same thing. A bit like ploughing a field, depends on the angle that you've actually got the scriber. Now the tooth blade on this one as well makes a large difference because this one's quite a fine one. If we come over to this one, it's got a slightly different chiseled end on this one and things like that as well. So if we just come down in here, we're going to do quite a low pass, so quite a chiseled end into this one. And again, we push along. That's quite a deep line. As you can see, it's a little bit bigger than the other ones because this one's quite a thicker type blade onto it. But again, if we come down in here, and then obviously we're going to do a nice high pass to this. Just a very thin line. And again, you've got the swath of it coming off. You can see just down in here, big swath, little swath coming off of it, just down in. So don't think that just, you're just cutting through. Depending on the angle will be, depending on how the panel line goes down into there as well. So again, you can do nice light lines, or you can do quite heavy lines, or something in between. And that is by just gentle pressure being applied right the way through. Obviously, if you use a heavier pressure, so we're down in here, a really low pass, so obviously what we're doing is going to be almost flat. We come in and obviously we just run this down here. We're adding quite a bit of pressure. You can see that's quite a deep line in, but the width of it is the same as the top because the top cut of it is the same, but this one down below is going to be a deeper pass than the one we've done up there. And then again, you can actually vary that a little bit. So this one up here, a low pass, very light pressure. As you can see, still got it down in there, but it's not going to be as deep. So again, depth wise will be how much you push down, but also it's affected on how you angle the actual scribing tool. A lot of people just think it's just a case of dragging. It's not. It depends on how you angle it as well. Another trick you can do as well is obviously on these ones, you've got the ability to push as well. So not only is it used for dragging, you can use it for pushing. So again, you can put it down in here. We'll put the blade down in here. All right, so we're just going to be slightly at an angle going forward. And again, we can just come down in here. We're pushing down and we go along. And that's by pushing instead of pulling. And you still see, you've still got the swath coming off of it down in here. So you can use these as a pushing tool as well as a pulling tool. So again, that's a push, that's a pull. So again, these are multi-directional. Also, you can use the other end. So you've got the other end down in here, which is what I like to do, get up tight into wing roots and things like that. So we just take this down to here. We're going to place this down in here. And again, you want to be very nice and light, and you can literally come along. You're not jumping out. As I say, pushing is definitely more of a freehand thing, but you can see all the swath coming off here is it. The great thing with freehand is you can come along like this, you can place it down and you can literally work it round corners. So you can go around edges and things like that with it. The only thing is obviously you want to be very much dependent how you go down. That one's quite a heavy one. I prefer this one. It's a lighter, it's got a longer handle, which means I can get a little bit lower with this and we can sort of come along and go round, and you can, technically carve into various shapes. And again, this is where your freehand comes in and you can do things like that. So again, it's one of those. But again, all of these ones will push and pull. So all of these will push and pull. If we go back up here, we do pull, and then we're sort of a medium angle. That puts it down in there. And then again, get rid of your swap. So we're lying flat. We're just going to come in here. And we're just going to push. And again, nice light angle. It's probably a little bit too light, but you can see what I mean. It's quite a thin one down in there. So again, don't think that all tools are just for pulling. You can push with some of them as well. Most pea cutters you can push and pull, so it's really good. So if you're into a situation like we're down in here on the Spitfire, we need to get down into this join here. Obviously, to get the tool in, it's going to be quite difficult to get that angle to get down in there. So you can either do a push one into it, or as I did, to be honest, with the exact tool, this in here, you can just push into that join just down in there, just like that. And again, same with any other one as well. You can use it as a push thing for coming in, so you can literally just clean out all the details like that. So again, just think of a scriber as being push as well as pull, so getting into those tight areas, so forth and so on. Again, there is other options out there. Over here, get rid of the bits, we've got the Tamiya one. These are really, really expensive, but I never really get on well with these. You can see that little hook on there. These are tiny, tiny ones, but these are great for getting into small little areas. Let me just make sure we're clear. So you can pop this just down in here. And then again, we can pop this one on, and you can make perfect ones down in there. But again, like all tools, as we say, it's what works for you in the great scheme of things, because obviously sometimes they, you might have a tool and it's just not working for you. So I say try different ones. Scribing wise, I really like these ones, these UMM ones. These are absolutely fantastic for it. And again, they do different ones of different styles and different shapes and things like that. This is the 02, and again, I like this one here with a long handle because it's 03. But if you want to be doing curves and things like that, again, it's a little bit old school, but I don't think you can go wrong with a needle. So this is just literally a needle in here. So then what you can do, if we just come in here, we're just gonna, let's not do a massive one, let's do one here. So we've got this little guy here, and we want to put an oval in and things like that. So all we do is we come along with our blade, and we're just going to start with our needle, very lightly run it round, not too heavy or anything else like that. We are literally just starting off very lightly, and then as you've got that first pass in there and you're happy that you've gone through a little bit, you can angle it a little bit just to start to carve it. And you can keep going around, ideally around the outside, and just keep going around, and you can go the other way, and you've got it just like that. And again, the same goes for pretty much anything. So if we've got one down in here, let's say we want to do one of these rounded sort of panels like this one, we can come in. So again, you might find as well that when you start, you just want to be very light, but then you can go back the other way and you might find it a little bit easier. So again, it's not a left or right handed thing, it's just sometimes it's just feels easier to go round. And again, clean out your swath and you're good to go. Same goes with a circle. So let's have a go with a circle again. But the great thing about a needle is it will go in any direction, where obviously some of the other ones don't like to go in different directions. And there's your circles. And again, if you want to go for some weird and wacky shapes, you've got these templates with all the different ones on. So we've got sort of an oval one down in here. And again, it's just that thing. To be honest, I'll be honest, I rushed that one there, getting a bit overconfident, but you can see a little bit of slip on there, no problem. And again, right the way through if you wanted to do triangles. Like that. And again, you're just going through. One of the biggest things, and we often say about this, is patience. Don't be tempted to push too hard. Let the tool do the work. I say it for everything. We talk about it with sanding. We spoke about it with glues. We've spoke about it with everything. It is that thing about taking your time. And also the biggest thing about doing it for scribing work and stuff like that is its practice. It may be one of those things you don't practice all the time, so it's very difficult to sort of get good at it because you haven't done enough of it. Because most of us just do where it's needed. It's very rare anybody turns around and says, you know, I'm going to rescribe that entire plane. But after a while, when you've been doing it, it actually becomes second nature. And I did a TU95 Bear a few years ago now. And the thing is, we rescribed the entire thing right the way over it. And that was the case of that it just needed to be sharpened up, make it a little bit more modern and things like that. Because obviously the details were on it were very soft and they were horrible. So we went round by the end of it, because I'd done it for a couple of days, I was getting quite good at it. But it's keeping that skill level up. It's one of those perishable skills, because you forget how much pressure you need and what angles. But as you're going around with it, usually you don't have a problem. So that's doing the scribing details. Now we can talk about the riveting. So to be honest, this is Rosie the Riveter. Again, this is one of those ones where you find a tool that works very, very well for you. RB Productions used to make the wheels for these, but again, it is available. There are some around. I know there's some talk about obviously some difficulties getting the actual wheels at the moment, because the people behind RB Productions are no longer with us, but as I say, hopefully they still will be. This is a straightforward job of putting detail in. So again, you can use a tool to come in. So we've got like a tri tool, and you can use it as a panel line to follow. So you can literally just pop it down, you come along with your wheel, you push it up against it, and then you literally just push along. I know you can't see it probably too well in there, but there is your row of rivets just in there, and that's a double row it's put in. Slightly staggered and offset, but if we use a normal one just down in here, if I push a little bit harder, hopefully we'll see a little bit more detail come through. There we go. You can see this is obviously the 1mm one down in there. We've got a 0.55, which will be a hell of a lot finer. And again, we can show you these a little bit later, which goes through. And again, finer details depending on which one. The great thing, sorry, it hates the white balance on these things because of the camera. There we go. So the thing is, what you want to do is though, it's that little thing about learning how to do. So if we just do the single one, when you're coming along, as I always say, don't focus down at the wheel, focus on where you're going to go. So let's say we're going to join up to the corner of this wheel here, for this one here. So we're going to do an imaginary line between. So all we do is look at it and then push towards it. And hopefully you can see that's a straight line. That's pretty darn good for someone who's literally just free-handed it straight in there. Hopefully you can see it's a nice straight line straight in there. And again, it's one of those ones where if you wanted to, you could then come along and you can go, okay, we're just going to go a little bit, then we're going to stop a little bit, then we're going to add a few more, and you can put gaps in. So by not putting pressure down, you just roll lightly across, you won't put any in. It's not enough to pierce right the way through. But again, if you wanted to put some curves in, the great thing about these is that they're very happy to put some wiggles in and some lines in like that. It's very, very forgiving how to go. But again, riveting is one of those things where you find a tool that works for you, it fits nicely in the hand, and to be honest, these wooden handle ones I really like because they do fit very well in the hand. But obviously you can use templates, so you can put, flexible templates up against it and you just run down the thing. But you probably will find that you can just come along and you can just push it in a straight line and have no problem at all. And when you get going with it, you can look at things as guides. So down in here, we've got this little, get rid of that white, sorry, because it's on the black, it doesn't like it. But you've got the metal and we've got that nut on the outside. So actually what you can do, you can use that nut as a guide, and we're just going to come along here and we put the nut on the side and we're just going to follow exactly that other panel line. So we've got perfect distance because we've used it as a guide. And that's how we go about doing it. And the same thing goes with other ones. So if you've got things like doubles and things like that, you might think, well, look, we just want to come along. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the first row of rivets in the middle of this guy here. So when we go along, then it will follow the other one and we'll end up with doubles on the other side. So we're just going to come along and we're just going to follow it through like that. And now we've got double row next to a single row. But I haven't had to use a template because we can use this. So you can just spot a line. So you might say, I'm going to go from the outside of this nut to the inside of the nut to anywhere in between, so forth and so on. And again, this is the great thing. So if you have got a situation where you've got some panel lines, perhaps like we've got down in here, and you want to follow that panel line perhaps on the inside, we're just going to put this onto here and we're just going to follow it right the way along. Slightly out of my eyesight, but there we go. Now we've got a row of rivets going along the panel line as if it's been put in. And again, if we want to do a single line, let's pick one out just here. So we're going to come in and we're going to go right along, keeping nice distance, equal distance, because we're using this as a guide to go as it goes along. So I was basically imagining just between the nut and the bar, placing the line onto that, as you can see, and that's how you go along. So you just follow it literally all the way through. Another little tip, and it's one that obviously I did when we did the bear, when you're blind riveting, i.e. you've got nothing to go against, what you can actually do is take a ruler or something else like that, or you can take a little bit of paper, you know, masking tape or something. You can just come along like this. So we grab a little bit of masking tape. So what we're going to do is, we're imagining this is just a blank piece of wing. So we're going to put a bit of paper here. And this is exactly how I did the bear bomber. We're down in here. What we're talking about is that we need to put a row of rivets right the way through, but there is no panel line, or perhaps we do want panel lines and we want rivets. So from that point of view, so we're going to do them at 1 centimeter distances right the way through. So what we'll do for this one is we're just going to come along and we're going to go for 1 centimeter gaps. Okay. Right the way through, so we can just mark these on a piece of tape, and then we've got them at 0.5. So again, okay, and then we can do the same up here. So we're on to here, so we'll say that's the first, and then 0.5s, and you can just dot or you can mark. You can just come along like this, something like that. Okay, so that's all in there now. So we've got these roughly marked in exactly how we want them. And then you can say to yourself, well, look, you know, to start with, we're going to do a panel line and we're going to do riveting, or which way it is. Once we've got this down on here, we can say, well, look, let's pop the panel line one in first. So let's just roughly line these up. So we're just going to say that's it. So we're going to pop a panel line in here. All right, so that's our panel line is going to be down in there. Then we can say, well, look, then there'll be another panel line, perhaps 15 up. So that will be on here. That's because I just missed that totally. That's because my hand was going a bit more. And then you can say, well, look, now we want riveting. So what we want to do is 2 lines of rivets, 1 each side of this particular guy we're on, so we can use this as somewhat as a guide. So then we're just going to come along here, and we've got a row of rivets down one side of that one, just down in there. Then on the other side, I'm going to be calky now and try and do it freehand. So there we go, we've got rivets now on each side, no problem at all. So there you would think, right, okay, and now we want to do something like just the single rivets on this one. So again, we're just going to go between the 2 lines. So we're going to go, okay, nice straight line up here. And there we go, that's our row of rivets for the sort of the ones in between the big formers. And we just come along and we put them all in like that, and that's how we do our wing section. So we've obviously got double rivets each side as if there's a former down in there, then we've got the ones in between, so we've just got the thinner plates down in there, and we can rivet those in. And again, if you wanted to, you could then just come along and we're going to say, right, let's pop some sideways ones in here, just like this. And then you might say, okay, let's bring this all together. We need an access panel, so we need an access panel just down in here. So we're just going to come along, pop this down in here, and then we're going to scribe in our access panel just down in there. And then again, perhaps we need let's think of a square one, and again we just want a small square access panel just down in here. And then again, here's that thing about just popping those in. That's it. And that's how you would go about doing the entire area. So it gives you an idea about if you're doing it and you've got no clues, because obviously it's very easy if you've got a model ready to go, but that's assuming you've got a raised panel line model and you've sanded them all off and now you've got to put them all in. By doing some tape with some measurements, you can come along and then make your way through with it and then start to add all this detail back in. And then again, obviously there's different shapes, there's different styles, there's obviously different sizes of riveting, various things like that. You can get different size wheels, so forth and so on, and that's how you do it. And that's how I go about doing riveting work and things like that. So it doesn't matter if you're doing it on something hugely big or a small model, perhaps it's just a small repair, so you just need a couple of rows of rivets and some rescribing like we've done down in here on the Spitfire, or you're thinking about doing scratch building, so you're just starting on plain white plastic card or into resin, or perhaps if you're going to thinking about I'm going to rescribe an entire huge bomber, or I'm going to add it like we did, to be honest, on the B-52 where we re-riveted the entire model, again to put all of that detail into it. It's quite straightforward, it's just very methodical, but honestly when you get going with it and you start pushing along and jogging along and you're thinking, do you know what, it's going really well this, and you sort of get into the flow of it, you get good habits, you start to lose the bad habits and you'll go along. The good habits is just relaxing. Just enjoy it, make your way through. If it goes wrong, don't worry about it. Either sand it off, because it's usually very light what you're doing here. You can just sand them away and go again. If it takes a little bit more, obviously you've got Mr. Surfaces, you could do sprue goos, just a little bit of filler job, give it a couple of hours, a light sand and go again with it. It's not a problem. Bad habits are going too quick, pushing too hard, not letting the tool do the work. So you're adding pressure onto it, especially with rescribing. What can happen is if you add too much pressure, you go too deep, and it's always the worst thing to do. You're better off doing 2 or 3 light passes to get it to the right depth than going 1 too deep, because once you've gone too deep you need to fill it, and then that's time. So you're better off going very lightly, getting it all down and you're happy with it, and then perhaps having to go over a few areas again just to add that detail back, than having to then start with fillers and then starting all over again. So think about that as well. Nice light passes, get a feel for it, understand it, it's fine, because once you've got that original panel line in, you can just follow along with another one. So all you can do is you can come along with your scribing tool, you can pop it into that panel line, you know, as you're making your way through, and then you just very lightly pulling it across, and there we go, we've just followed that panel line, no problem at all. So again, it will follow itself through, but again, as soon as you press too hard and you jump out of that panel line, you've made a mess. So very nice, and it will just follow along quite nicely as well. So remember, keep it light and you'll be absolutely fine with it. So there we go, that's rescribing, repaneling, and obviously putting in, you know, riveting detail, things like that, and then obviously doing shapes for access panels and that type of thing.